As you can see, one of those leatherettes has suffered. I'm going to have to cut a patch into here. So first I'll have to make sure that that's a nice straight lined piece so that I can actually make a patch that'll fit it. Its mate on this side is fine. There's a slight pinhole there, but that'll disappear. But I want to make a patch in here and another patch in here. There was a split in the leatherette there, but that's disappeared. That's been glued back together. So I'll cut that hole to something more regular, I think. That's pretty close. Get those ends trimmed up. Okay, I'll be able to cut a triangle to fit that without too much trouble. And it's made over here. I just want a straight line across there, I think. See, that leatherette cracked on me there too. This is not a good piece of leatherette. Just put a bit of adhesive into that crack right now. And push that piece back. Okay. So I'll need to cut some patches into that, but I'll do that once that's glued back on the camera. See if I can just straighten up these lines slightly. And this is because leatherettes get brittle with age, and they can just give up. They're just not equal to the fight when you're trying to struggle to get them off the camera. Okay, so with those pieces are cut out nice and neat, that will probably go straight back onto the camera apart from that without any problems. And I'll cut some patches in once it's back. And here's the leatherette for the back of the camera. When I put this back on there, I'll be wanting to try and get these bumps to lie down flat. And they've been raised quite a lot. That plastic's been stretched, and of course when the plastic's been stretched, it doesn't want to shrink. There's no reason for it to want to shrink unless you can really encourage it. What I'll do is I will warm all this up with a hairdryer once I put it back on the camera, with a hope that I can push those high spots down and that they'll stay fairly flat. I'll start with this side. This is the unbroken side. And get that adhesive evenly on that surface. Special attention to make sure that the edges get a good helping of adhesive. And at this sharp point at the end too, make sure that's got some on it, so otherwise it won't stay tucked down properly. That'll do. Now taking that piece of leatherette, let's get that in place on the camera body. Need to get the pointy end in nicely. Now this really only goes up to the edge of that black trim there. It doesn't get tucked under. Not like its mate at the other end, which most definitely does. So just get this seated in here, make sure it's nice and square. And make sure it's smoothed down. So I've got a tiny little hole through here, a little crack. That'll disappear shortly. I've got answers to things like that. But otherwise that piece of leatherette looks really good. So that's that side. Its mate on the other side, of course, is the ugly piece of leatherette, the one with holes in it. Let's see if we can get this on the camera. We're being a bit generous here, let's get rid of some of that. Okay, we have our piece of leatherette. We have the camera body. See if we can get this in position. It's very stiff. Got to make sure that the corners in particular is tucked in down there. And it's tucked in to between the top and bottom edges, and it should be right up against that hinge line there. Now getting it moulded onto that edge of the mould of the body there is going to be tricky. It's always tricky. It's because it doesn't want to roll around that sharp edge basically. But if I'm mould it down with my tail of my tweezers like this, I can get it to lie down flat and smooth. And I've got to cut you can see I've got to cut a patch there, and I've got to cut a patch in there by the hinge. But none of that looks too difficult. It just doesn't want to lie down flat around that sharp edge of the casting. Well, that looks quite good. I'll just rub off some of this excess adhesive that's squeezed out of the edges. Be somewhat more circumspect over here because I don't want to peel off any more of the leatherette. This leatherette was cracked at that point, and you can just see a trail, a little smear of adhesive there as a result. Here I've just got a little bit of naphtha on a cotton bud, and I'm just wiping over those edges where the adhesive may have sneaked out. But that's looking quite good so far. Just need to keep making sure that that leatherette moulds tightly to the body around that corner. But that's looking pretty good. Okay, well, I'll see about putting the leatherette on the back first, I think, and then come back and cut my patches after that. Let's get this leatherette done. It's always a bit tricky doing leatherette on a large area like the back. Trying to get it all on there and get it all spread evenly covered to the edges before it dries. I almost had enough there to do the job. Some in this corner. Okay, we've got our piece of leatherette, and to get it on the camera body now. Most important thing is to make sure you've got it the right way up. There's nothing more disconcerting than a camera with the leatherette on upside down. And you might think I'm joking, but no, I've seen that before. I think the worst leatherette I saw, and I've seen it on more than one occasion, is where somebody put the adhesive on the wrong side. They put it on the outside, so that when they glued it back to the camera, you saw the lining. You didn't see the embossed plastic coating, you just saw the glue covered cotton lining. Right, well, this is sticking back reasonably well. I want to see if I can get the lumps and the bumps to flatten out. I'm just going to go and warm this up with a hairdryer and see if I can roll those bumps down. Well, here I've got a leatherette scrap. You can see it's about half of the cover from the base of a retina. I want to see if I can cut a patch from that to go in here. I'll just cut this down in size a bit so I'm not working with a monstrous piece. This is very hard, it doesn't cut well. I'll make an angled cut across that, and then I'll alter that as necessary after I've had a look. Yeah, this is a bit brittle too. Okay, less angle than that. Let's try that. I'm just doing this by eye, but you can get it pretty good. Okay, that fits nicely. Now I've just got to get it cut down to length. Approximately how much do I want? Approximately I want something like that. I'll just cut a piece off. Check what I've got and check where I need to be. Right, I can see by marking the other leatherette that I need to be there. And at the other side, I need to be here. See if I can line those two marks up. About there. Back a bit from there. Back a bit. Oh yeah, I can see where my mark's off there. Let's get that a bit better across there then. Well, that's pretty close. I can cut that parallel back slightly more from there. Well, that piece just flipped over on me while I was watching, almost cut the wrong side. Back where we were. Just a very slight amount off that edge. Okay, let's try my patch again. It's important that it sits down into that space, but it should be snug. Okay, I think that's just about it. I'm just going to tidy up my area I'm sticking it into first. That corner's got a bit of something in it. And here it's a little bit cracked too. Let's try it again. I think that'll do. I think we're in business. That leatherette's actually pushed across a bit there. Right, I'm going to glue that patch in place. Now I just need to make sure that it's down firmly in that space, that the edges are butted up against each other, that it's not overlapping. It's looking pretty good. Give that a wipe with a bit of naphtha just to take any excess adhesive off the edges. Okay. Can you see where I've been? I can, but you might not be able to. You'd have to know where to look. Certainly the vertical cut on this side is more obvious than the angled cuts. Well, I'm quite happy with that. I think that'll disappear nicely. And that only leaves me this little chip here to deal with. And that shouldn't be a great problem. In fact, I've got a piece of my patch that I can use to do that. Yeah, I think I've got a piece big enough to do the job right there, so I'll just trim that down and fit that in place. Now, patching leatherettes is it's not the most difficult job in the world, but it's not something that immediately springs to mind when you're repairing cameras. That was a lucky save. That was trying to get down that slot in the side of the shutter. That would have meant I'd had to take the whole camera apart again if it fell down there and wouldn't come out. Okay, just judging what angle I need to cut this patch at to make it fit properly. Oh, I cut that in the wrong direction. No, I cut it in the right direction. Okay, just cut some off that side. It's very difficult sometimes to see that whether the patch is sitting in as neatly as it should do. I suppose you just about consider this camera retouching, wouldn't you? Oh, that's good. And the bottom edge. Where does that need to go? Okay. Oh yeah, that's it. I can't even see that. I haven't glued it in yet. Right, let's get some adhesive on that. It'll be like it never happened. Well, here's our Retina IIIS, all back together, Leatherettes in place, looking pretty good I think. The camera body functions nicely. I've tested the camera with a range of lenses, 35mm through to 135mm, and the frame in the finder selects correctly, rangefinder's adjusted correctly, everything's good to go. So this camera can go back to its owner. Now this is the last Retina IIIS that I'll be servicing for a customer, because now I'm almost retired. And this is probably the second to last camera of any sort I'll be repairing for a customer, because I only have one more to do. That's a Retina IIIS. And the videos for that will follow this one in due course. Thanks for watching.